So it is again that time, one of my favorite times of the week. It is time for the Around the Ballpark podcast. Very, very excited to talk baseball today. As always, my co-host and partner Darren Redmond alongside with me, and today we're going to talk about the Cincinnati Reds, the Great American Ballpark. And to do that, we have with us today Stephen Offenbaker of the Locked On Reds podcast is joining with us, and we're going to just kind of talk about all things Cincinnati Reds. But before we do that, Darren, a quick word.
I got nothing. No, I'm kidding. Here's the thing. Attention all. You have tax troubles? Are you conceptually thinking about tax troubles? Or you feel that somehow maybe you did something that you forgot to file and it's just in the back of your mind? Nashville Tax Solutions has got you covered. Whether you're behind on returns, facing a lien, or just need that expert advice, their team is ready to help. Hear what clients say. Tell us things like this. Chris Bennett, who owns and created Nashville Tax Solutions, has his team save so many people save them from financial ruin, problems, and things of that sort, save them money, and they're knowledgeable, they're clear, they're compassionate. And here's the thing, Chris Bennett and his team know that everything's not a template. Each situation is unique and different. So don't let the taxes stress you out. Reach out to Nashville Tax Solutions today. Call 615-502-2250. Visit NashvilleTaxSolutions.com or email info@NashvilleTaxSolutions.com. Nashville Tax Solutions, where tax resolution is achieved. Over to you, Mike.
All right, so I'm excited to dive in here today, talking about the Cincinnati Reds, a team that's very exciting to watch. Right now, they're actually sitting fifth in the division. However, I think a lot of that has to do with that recent or current road trip that they've been on. I'm not too worried. A lot of people would look at that and forget that we're here on May 19th and not September 19th. I still feel like this team is going to be in the running at the end of the season. I know right now things may look a little bit bleak, but have faith, Reds fans. I think we still have a very good and productive season ahead of us. So go ahead. I'd like to jump in. And Stephen, thank you for joining us. If you wouldn't mind just quickly sharing a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of dive into it.
Well, thanks so much, Mike, for having me on. I love talking Reds baseball. As you mentioned, I am one half of the Locked On Reds podcast, myself and my co-host Jeff Carr. We've been podcasting about the Reds for 6 seasons now. Half of them apart on separate shows, and we've done the last 3 together. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. As far as I go, I have a journalism background, covered college and high school sports in written form for a lot of years, missed it. Wanted to find something to do to kind of get back in that journalistic lane somehow. And podcasting was a natural tool for that. Started talking about the Reds. It's gone so well. And I would not have predicted that we would reach as many people as we reach now. And we've got a fun team to cover. So it's enjoyable to do 5 times a week.
Yeah, I know. I just enjoy it. There's just something about this team. Let's start. Let's look into their lineup a little bit, but let's just start right there. I stay at the top, but I really mean let's talk about Elly De La Cruz. Just one thing that we've talked about a lot on this podcast, Stephen, is baseball does a good job of we're going to see the Yankees and Red Sox this week. We're going to see this one, but one thing we really feel like will take Major League Baseball to the next level is to promote certain stars that a lot of people still may not know about unless you're a Cincinnati Reds fan or a true baseball fan. And I believe Elly De La Cruz is on that short list of guys that can really take baseball to that next level. Not just put more people in seats at the stadium, but more people watching it. Because we still have that, your casual fans that, I enjoy baseball in person, but watching on TV, I kind of tend to just, come in and out, watch the playoffs. But Elly's that guy that is pretty much can't miss. You miss an at bat for him, you're probably missing something special. So just want to start with him, your initial thoughts and what he is capable of.
Well, I was lucky enough to be back in Cincinnati when he made his debut last year, and an electric is the word that continues to be thrown around when you talk about Ellie De La Cruz. And electric is the right word. From the first day, the atmosphere in the stadium was electric. His performances are electric. The things that he does are electric. He is there's really no other way to describe him than generational talent. He is something that we haven't seen in baseball. He has an ability to beat you with the bunt, beat you with the home run, do it from both sides of the plate. In the new StatCast era where we're recording everything now, he set records as far as, the speed of throws across the infield. He threw a ball from shortstop to first base earlier in the season, 106 miles an hour. He has a cannon for an arm. He's a little rough around the edges defensively. He'll make an error that'll drive you crazy. What we have to remember that Ellie's very, very young and he's still learning. He's only 22 years old. But the things that he's been able to do last year, stealing from first to second, second to third, third to home in 2 pitches, just 2 pitches. He stole those bases. He does things like that. He's got an inside the park home run. He's got a cycle. He's got all of these things that you just don't see every day. And you're right. Every single at bat, if you're watching Ellie on TV, there's an opportunity for you to be jumping up out of your chair and shouting towards the TV from the things that he's going to do. He is a great disruptor. Pitchers don't know what to do with him. Defenders, I've seen him leg out ground balls to first base for hits. That's how fast he is. It's just not something you see every day. And even as bad as the Reds have been right now during this stretch, you're absolutely correct. And you tune in every day to see what Ellie De La Cruz is going to do.
Again, I'm the old guy here, right? So who he reminds me of is one of the greatest, I think, shortstops ever who happened to play for the Cincinnati Reds. And that's Dave Concepcion. Dave Concepcion, who, in my opinion, invented the one-hop throw to first. He would bounce the ball, and you see shaking your head on the AstroTurf, and it would be beautiful right to Tony Perez's glove. He reminds me of him because if he gets to it, he's going to throw you out. He's going to find a way to throw you out. Now, he's a much better hitter than Dave Concepcion was. Different kind of play there, though they both bunt very well. And I love the fact that he is playing in Cincinnati and as a smaller market, because he can just grow and he can become one with the fans and the fans with him. He is a generational player. I say that now. So much so, very much so.
Yep. I was graciously got an opportunity this past week actually to go to Fenway Park for the very first time. And what I noticed when I was there was pretty much every jersey in the stadium was a player not on the current Red Sox roster. And I feel like I haven't been to the Great American Ballpark. Actually might get an opportunity to go there in August this year for work. But if I do, De La Cruz is that guy that you're going to go to Cincinnati, and yes, you're going to see your players of the past and whatnot. But he's the guy that's going to sell merchandise, going to bring new intrigue into there. But he's got great protection around him in that lineup. Will Benson batting ahead of him, and then Mike Ford after that. And if you want to kind of talk a little bit about those 2 individuals, Will and Mike Ford, in terms of what they need to do to kind of get them back on the track that we know that they're going to finish on this year.
Will Benson's an interesting case. My co-host Jeff loves Will Benson. He was on the Will Benson hype train from day one. It took me longer to get there. When Will Benson came over from Cleveland to Cincinnati, he struggled to the point that while he made the team out of spring training last year, they sent him down not long after that because he was just not ready for prime time. But he went down to Louisville. He got his act together. He came up and he's been much, much better. Right now he's had some struggles. He came into spring training wanting to be an everyday player. He approached David Bell, the manager of the Reds. He approached Nick Krall, the general manager, when he got to Goodyear for spring training and said, I want to bat against left-handed pitchers. I want to be an everyday player. And then circumstances presented themselves and kind of forced that move to happen. He has not done super well right now, batting 193, on base percentage 284, slugging 393. He's got 6 home runs on the season. He's showing flashes. He's not been bad where I want to give up on him. There's more there's more to come from Will Benson. He is definitely a work in progress. He's going to get better. I don't know if he's ever going to learn to hit left-handed pitching. He may be a platoon guy. They've got another guy on the team right now that's here because of injuries and suspensions and everything else that's gone on with this team that wouldn't be here, and that's Stuart Fairchild. The thing with Stuart Fairchild is I've proclaimed him from the beginning to be a 4A player, a guy that's kind of good enough to be in between levels almost, but not quite a major leaguer. Stuart has shown a tremendous ability to hit left-handed pitching this year. So really, Will Benson and Stuart Fairchild form the perfect outfielder right now. They both play good defense, and they hit the opposite-handed pitcher very, very well. As far as Mike Ford goes, what a story, right? Comes into the Reds in spring training, doesn't make the team, goes to the minors, has an out in his contract if he wants it, doesn't get called up, decides to exercise his out. The Reds say, yeah, okay, we're going to go ahead and let you go. Go be a free agent. Go with God. Good luck. The very next day, Christian Encarnacion Strand ends up back on the injured list. They sign Mike Ford to a major league deal this time, and here he is batting third on this team. I don't like him batting third. I don't like him batting behind Ellie. I'd like them to move him down in the lineup. I think he's better suited for being lower. I would love it if it was Spencer Steer after Ellie De La Cruz every single time. I like that 1-2 punch. But Mike Ford is making the most of his opportunity right now. He showed some flashes. He has some pop. He's hit a home run already in his limited playing time here for the Reds. I think that he will be a casualty of health in that once guys come back, they're not going to have the luxury to keep him around. Maybe he becomes the last man on the bench if they can get creative in getting guys back down to Louisville. But Ford's a Band-Aid for us, really. And I don't know, unless he just has some amazing run here before CES comes back, he's going to be a bridge to get the other guys back.
But you know what? That's a good opportunity for him, right? I mean, sometimes you get listen, when you go without a paycheck, the theoretical paycheck, and you come back, and you know what? This is the business. He may realize that. I mean, we're three people who see that, and he may be playing for the opportunity to play someplace else, and the Reds will reap the benefits of that. I do think what you touched on is important. That's the kind of guy, if you can afford to do it, and what I mean by not just money, I mean positions and other people, to have on the back of your bench. Give me the pro on the back of the bench. I'm a big believer in that. I mean, in different sports, I like having the backup goalie being a veteran. I like the backup quarterback being a veteran. I like the guy that's been through the mill a few times as my backbencher. I mean, that's a nice luxury to have, because I think the Reds can make the run and make a playoff run this year if things break right. I truly do.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to touch on too, before we kind of want to talk a little bit about the rotation, but before I do that, we mentioned the word platoon earlier. Like, one thing that how nowadays you kind of see there's all these allergies that are coming up. Oh, allergic to this, allergic to that, and can't have this and can't have that. It feels like platoons, like people are popping up. It's popping up more and more. More teams are only playing this guy against lefties and this guy against righties. And it felt like just 10, 15 years ago, it was you had your guys that play 6 out of the days of the week, and then you had your 4 to 5 or 6 bench players that would come in pivotal roles and do their thing. Now it's almost like that we're seeing that the manager's trying to get everybody in there to accommodate left-handed and right-handed pitching. There's very few people that are delegated to just the bench role anymore. With this Reds team, there's some guys that kind of come in and out of that lineup. But if both your takes on that, are you seeing that more like on your end as well, like where you're seeing more of that platoon player?
The thing with platoons, it's the new baseball, right? Major League Baseball pitching at the major league level is better now than it has ever been in the history of the game. Everybody throws 100. Everybody throws with maximum effort. Everybody has this ridiculous amount of break on their pitches with their spin rates and all of the things that have gone on. The evolution of pitching has been it's just in such a place so much better than it's ever been. This is how the hitters have adjusted. This is how the game has adjusted. You can't be a left-handed hitter facing a left-handed pitcher and be able to deal with that on an everyday basis, unless you're one of those rare exceptions, one of those exceptional talents that can do it. I mean, even, we spent some time talking about Elly De La Cruz already, switch hitter, so that he doesn't have to contend with that he doesn't have to try and be an everyday guy batting from one side of the plate. So I think that's the way baseball is going to be, unless, Rob Manfred has, God help us. Rob Manfred
I
has,
despise that man.
My favorite hashtag is hashtag Manfred hates baseball. He has made so many changes to this game, and
Yep.
I envision that as they continue to try and drive offense in the game, and we've seen it with the stolen bases, we've seen it with things they're doing, they're going to make changes to the pitching mound, they're going to make changes to the pitching distance in order to help the hitters. When they do that, we may see a bit of a return to an everyday player, where guys have more time, lefty on lefty, righty on righty, to see the ball, adjust to the ball, do things. But until that happens, I think platoons are what you're going to have.
If I could jump in there, what's old is new, right? I asked people to do a Google search on Casey Stengel. And when the Yankees, and again, it was a lot easier then, all right? You didn't have three different playoff rounds. You were only allowed white people in baseball. But what he did back then was he was a platoon manager. He had certain guys bat against righties, certain guys bat against lefties. Gil Hodges was the same thing. Look it up. But what they're doing now is so it's not new. They just understanding the value of all the reasons that Steven just said. And for example, the '69 World Series. I mean, you had Don Clendenin against lefties. You had Ed Kranepool against righties. I mean, there's nothing new. It's just they see the value in that for all the reasons that Steven just said. So I think it's here to stay until Manfred screws up the game, as he always does, and he always will, because he is a jackwagon. But that's just my own personal opinion. Mike, you're up.
Okay, so I mentioned wanting to kind of chat about that rotation. So we're looking at the guys that they have in there. Looking at the ERA, there's three guys in the threes and two in the fours. If you're Hunter Green, Andrew Abbott, and Brent Suter, who's kind of in there now. But the record they have versus the starting pitching they have, for those that may not watch the Reds product on an everyday basis, looking at the starting stats, I'm not seeing something that's really alerting me. So really, what is the kind of downfall right now? Is it the lack of offense, or is it on the bullpen side, the relief pitching side? Because looking at these stats here, I'm not seeing something for cause of concern.
Yeah, of the problems that the Reds have right now, starting pitching is not one of them. Hunter Green's been amazing. He's gone 7 innings his last 2 starts. He's going against the Dodgers. He is transitioning from thrower to pitcher, and he's getting much more polished. And once he completes that process, look out. We're talking an upside, Scherzer, an upside Kershaw, an upside Randy Johnson. All of those type of guys, those type of power pitchers. Hunter Green can be those guys. He is just still trying to get polished. Graham Ashcraft is another one. His ERAs in the fours. I don't even like to look at ERAs hardly anymore. Lots of other statistics to look at that give you a good inclination of what's going on. I like to have strikeouts per 9 up around 9 or 10 and a walks per 9 of less than 3. You give me that as a starting pitcher, the team's going to have success. The Reds have not hit the ball. That's been the problem in Cincinnati. They just simply have not hit the ball consistently. Nobody. You look at Elly, and everything starts and ends with Elly, and nobody else has really been on a heater at the same time. And you can't win baseball games with only one guy hitting. The problem for the offense and the Reds is that this is not the team they were supposed to be. They lost 33% of their starting lineup before the season even started, with Matt McClain going down, with Elly De La Cruz being suspended, and with TJ Friedl being out. TJ Friedl was penciled in to be your everyday center fielder, left-handed leadoff guy. he, as much as Ellie is a disruptor on the base pass, so is TJ Friedel. His nickname in Cincinnati is Captain Chaos. Everything was going to start and end with him being on base, setting the table for the rest of the guys. Matt McClain goes down with a shoulder injury that has him out through at least August, September. That was a tremendous loss. He was going to be the engine. He was going to be the spark for this offense that everybody else got going around. Tremendous loss. Then you lose Noelvi Marte. The fact that he squandered an opportunity to have a rookie of the year season. We got to see him a little bit last year. He was still rookie eligible. Gets a PED suspension. I couldn't have been more mad than I was when it was announced that he's going to be out for a PED suspension. It was selfish. It was stupid. He is young. Hopefully he learns from this and comes back a better, more reliable teammate. I think he owes the city of Cincinnati, the fans of the Reds, and the team itself an apology. I hope that he presents that apology at some point and then we can move on from it. But 33% of the starting lineups not there. And it's guys that were not only expected to be, on the team, they weren't role players. These were guys that were penciled in to be starters every single day. That's where things jumped off the wheels right out of the gate. Now, we've talked about you look at the starting pitching that you're getting, you compare it to the record that they have, the things don't match up. They've been on a awful stretch. 10-game West Coast road trip. They have played San Francisco, Arizona, Los Angeles. They come home to play the Padres again, followed by more with the Dodgers. May is brutal. The nice thing about it is, though, by the end of May, all their games with the Dodgers are done. All of their games with the Diamondbacks are done. They are going to have a much easier schedule moving forward. While everybody else is still having to battle those guys. So it's scary to look at the record. It's scary to look at their place in the division right now. They're 8.5 games back as we record, I think. Those things are kind of scary. They're a little disheartening for what we thought we were going to have with this team. But June hits, the schedule gets easier. Noelvi Marte comes back from suspension. TJ Friedel comes back from injury. And you're starting to get the team that you were supposed to have at the time where the schedule gets easier. They're going to be able to dig out of it. I don't know that they're going to be, I think they could still be an 80+ win team. I think they still have an outside shot to come back and win this division. And I think at the very least, they'll make the playoffs as a wild card.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you mentioned Marte earlier. For those that may not know the Reds farm system too well, and I'll admit I don't know the Reds farm system all too well, but I do know that they have 4 prospects, including Marte, that are in the MLB top 100.
Yes.
Including Rhett Lauder, right-handed pitcher. Is there, we have Rhett Lauder, Edwin Arroyo, and Cam Collier. So those are the 3 other guys that are the future. Is there anything about any one of those individuals that those watching maybe need to know, or is there someone I didn't mention that is also on your radar?
Those are kind of the big guys right now. So last year, the Reds, this wave hit of prospects, right? They got all of these rookies kind of came up together, and that was the first wave. There's some guys that are way down in the system right now. I don't tend to focus on them because you never know with baseball, right? You don't know who's gonna pan out, who's not. But the names that you just mentioned, we'll start with Rhett Lauder. He's out of Wake Forest. He came to the Reds very, very polished already. I talked with him in Dayton before the season started. He's itching to go. He's raring to go. He had a lot of success to start things early down there in Dayton. For the Dragons in 5 starts, he threw 25 innings, 2.49 ERA. He was striking out 10.3 batters per 9 and only walking 2.1. He was on a mission in single A. They've already moved him up. He's made 2 starts in double A Chattanooga. First start was great. Second start, not so much. A little bit of growing pains, I think, there. But in 2 starts there, he got smacked around in his last start, gave up like 7 runs. So, and I think that's good. I'm going to tell you why I think that's good, because he needs to get hit a little bit. He needs to be challenged a little bit. He needs to have reasons to get polished. That's one of the problems that Hunter Green had. He threw the ball so hard that minor league hitting couldn't do anything with him. He moved through the system quickly, got to the majors, and he hadn't really learned how to pitch. The nice thing about Rhett Lauder is coming out of Wake Forest, a good pitching program. He's pitched in the College World Series. He's faced adversity. He's faced good hitting. He's faced challenges. He's getting polished. I think we see him in Cincinnati at the beginning of next year. He is not that far away, even though he's only at double A ball. Edwin Arroyo, probably the best defensive shortstop in the entire system, but he's gone for the entire year. Shoulder surgery took him down. He is not playing. So his development has been set back now, probably 2 more years before Edwin Arroyo has an opportunity to make this team. It'll be interesting because the suspicion is that when he finally reaches the major league level, if he can hit well enough to make to the majors, when that happens, you're probably going to see a position change for Ellie De La Cruz. You probably see Ellie move to third base or maybe even center field. So it will be interesting, but that's a couple years away as well. Cam Collier is very young, but man, what a tremendous upside that guy has. He can hit the ball a country mile. He has so much power. He has so much talent. It's very early in his career. I'm interested to see how he develops because, there was another guy in the system that's still in the system, Reese Hines, that had that same kind of power and just hasn't really been able to put it together in a way to get to the majors, to get moving through the system. If Cam Collier can be that guy, once he reaches the majors, he would be another talent with an impact like Ellie had when he got to the team. So, but it's early. It's really too early to say that's who he's going to be, but that's who he can be.
One thing I just want to add to what you're saying there, I've had the privilege before I moved to Cape Cod to living in outside of Fresno, California. So I covered the Fresno Grizzlies, both when they were a AAA farm team and when they were now currently as a single A farm team. And for different organizations, the Giants specifically, the Nationals and the Astros. And I bring that up because what people don't understand sometimes is a pitcher goes from, say, AA to AAA. Oh, and the first couple starts, they got lit up on this. No. And I know this for fact. Sometimes they're like you kind of alluded to, Steve, they're working on something, whether it's an off-speed changeup or this or that. And when they're working on it, they're going to struggle with it. That's why you're working on it. So it's not just that they can't pitch at that level. That's not what the job is. The end game is to get them to the major league level. So they're working on things and they have to adapt and see how they do, much like you do sometimes in spring training. But that's the goal. In minor league baseball, and again, the stakes get higher and higher as you go up. Winning is important, yeah, but development's what it's about.
Yeah,
And,
I'm glad you see that because
courtesy of
development is
your
what it's about. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
and sorry, and courtesy of your friend Rob Manfred, the baseball is different at every level of minor league baseball. They trial different baseballs throughout the minors.
Yes.
So every time a player moves to a new level, the ball plays differently, and they spend their first several starts trying to get a feel for what the ball is going to do because it's a different baseball.
Forgot all about that. That's a great point.
And what I was going to just share was that, and maybe a minority saying this, but I'm more excited about the guy coming up in my system than I am the big name free agent anymore. Used to always be like, oh, I got to get that guy. Usually the chemistry doesn't work. Something's off here, something's off there. Maybe it's because I'm a Mets fan and I've been, so many times get my hopes up and whatever. But to me, I look towards who's coming up. Yes, we're going to get a guy here and there for this transaction, that transaction, but really the way to make headway is by your farm system developing, giving a chance to develop, and seeing what they can do as they come up. To me, I don't know about the two of you, but to me, I'm more excited about that guy anymore than I used to be.
But yeah, and cue the cheating taunts and chirps. But a great example of that is I got to watch the Houston Astros when they played AAA for the Fresno Grizzlies. That was a great team, and they just came up together. The Giants, I got to watch, Buster Posey. I got to watch Tim Lincecum, and they all came up together. A strong farm team is golden, absolutely golden.
And so I know, Stephen, you're actually not from the Cincinnati area. You don't currently live in the Cincinnati area, but talking about the Great American Ballpark, the current home of the Cincinnati Reds, the team, can't have much more history than a team who in 1876 played in what's called the Avenue Grounds, very first professional baseball team. So where they are now we can't cover all the parks because there's so many of them that were, way before my time. But talking about the Great American Ballpark, from what you can share, just what is that experience like for a fan walking into that ballpark for the very first time? and some intricacies about the park that maybe some people don't know about.
Well, just to let you know, I'm a partial season ticket holder at Great American Ballpark. I get back about 4 times a year, so I spend a lot of time at GABP. First of all, it's just a great fan experience. The area, they play the stadium's in an area they call the Banks in Cincinnati. It's a totally redeveloped area with all of these great eateries and bars and places to hang out that basically sit on the old site of Riverfront Stadium. So they built GABP right next door to the old stadium, Riverfront Stadium. Once the new stadium was up, they tore the old stadium down and redeveloped the entire area. There are so many fun places to hang out down there in the Banks. There's a great walking outdoor area where all the restaurants and bars have outdoor windows where you can order and you can walk around with your stuff and just spend time down in downtown Cincinnati on the river. It's a great time. The ballpark itself, I love Great American Ballpark. Now there are some ballparks that, are a little bit more beautiful, that were laid out a little bit better. But Cincinnati did what they could in a very confined, limited space because they had to build that ballpark right next to the old one. But when you get into the stadium, there's not a bad seat in the stadium. There are no obstructed views. Anywhere you have a ticket, you're going to get a great view of the game. If you're in the bowl behind home plate anywhere, ground level, upper deck, great view out of the stadium onto the river. There's a lot of tribute to the river and the paddle boats with some of the design. The Reds home run celebration there in the outfield is smokestacks that you would see on a paddle boat that have fireworks and fire that shoot out of the top of them. There's a party deck out in center field that's made to resemble a river boat that large groups can rent for the game. There's not a bad seat in the house. The concessions are great. There's good food. I really love being there. There's lots of good standing areas. I will generally buy a ticket in the upper deck somewhere just because I don't really sit still during the game, and I'll go to the standing areas and walk around and meet up listeners from our show that want to come say hi and talk baseball. And it's just a great time to be in the ballpark. Cincinnati in the summer is amazing. And I live in Hawaii. I leave here to go vacation there. That's how much fun it is watching games at that ballpark. So Great American Ballpark, you can't go wrong seeing a baseball game there.
I've been to Cincinnati quite a few times, and I forgot what it was called, that area, but I just love that you can walk from your hotel right to the stadium, and there's a lot of other things that you can do there. It's just a very fun place, and again, I'll share my story real quick. I almost had a first professional heart attack. Was going to Cincinnati. Why? Because I'm going to tell you a little secret, kids. You ready? Cincinnati Airport is in Kentucky. So what happened was I flew for the first time and I fell asleep on a plane, and they said, we've landed in Kentucky. And I thought I took the wrong plane. I sincerely did. But it is a beautiful stadium. It's a beautiful area. I got asked about this, Mike, right? Because while I love the Met announcers, they trashed Skyline Chili, which was evil to me because I enjoy Skyline Chili. First off, Stephen, what do you think is the secret ingredient, and what are your thoughts?
I'm going to step off camera. I want to grab something. Give me just a second.
All right. You do realize you're going to have Skyline Chili when you go, Mike?
Yes. Yeah, our corporate office is there, actually, so I'm hoping to go for a meeting in August. So.
All right, so Skyline Chili.
You
have to have your Skyline Chili. Even here in Hawaii, every time I go back, I buy these packets, and I know when my next trip's going to be, and I bring back enough so I can have one of these a week while I'm here in Hawaii.
It
is always Skyline time. Free plug for Skyline Chili. Listen, I think the secret ingredient. I think the secret ingredient is cinnamon. That is my guess.
I hear cinnamon, I hear chocolate, right? Those are the two little ththings I hear all the time, and it is so good. I love it with the pasta, and I have what's it called, the pony, with the hot dog. I love it both. I just love it. I'm sorry, guilty as charged.
Yeah, I'm a Skyline fan. Me
too.
I always have it on hand.
Me too.
That's awesome. One other thing that we like to do here before we kind of wrap things up is we love to just kind of not go back too far, but we always love to just kind of chat about what our Mount Rushmore would be of current players that we've seen in our lifetime. So maybe go back 40, 50 years in terms of that. So your 4 individuals, if I had to just kind of throw that at you, who would those 4 individuals be? I'll start with you, Stephen.
Okay, and it was a little bit of a curveball, you putting that 40-year cap on it. This is a much easier question to answer if I can do in all of franchise history. Much easier. If I've got to put the 40-year cap on it, I think the first guy that I put on the Mount Rushmore in the last 40 years is Joseph Daniel Votto. There are a lot of people in the Cincinnati area that I don't think appreciated what they had with Joey Votto being here. Some of that goes back to the broadcast crews that we had at the time, legendary broadcast crews, but they had been around a long, long time, and the baseball was very, very bad, and they were a little more curmudgeonly than they had been in the early days, and they let Votto have it for not being who they thought he should be. And that translated into the fan base some. Later in his career, Joey's personality showed. He became much more beloved by the fans. But at the end of the day, he is probably number 2, number 3 all-time ever to play for this team. As far as all-around player. There was a time, 2010, 2017, 2010, the MVP year. 2017 should have been an MVP year. He got robbed. Performance at the plate unlike anything you've ever seen from anybody in baseball. The best hitter in baseball in those years. So he's my number 1 guy. I wish things had played out differently and he could have had 1 more year in Cincinnati and a farewell tour that he deserved. I wish it had played out that way. Number 2 for me is Barry Larkin. You capped this to my lifetime, and that was my guy when I was a kid, right? That was the shortstop. He took over for Concepcion, who we talked about a little bit earlier, and continued that elite Hall of Fame level type play at shortstop, but added in the hitting. That's where Davey Concepcion lacked a little bit. He was never a strong hitter, but shortstops weren't then, right? Right. The evolution of the position has changed the way that a shortstop plays the game. But Barry Larkin was that next guy. Hall of Famer, both, a Reds Hall of Famer and a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer. He's my number 2 guy. Number 3 guy, his numbers in the totality of his career probably don't, put him up there with the all-time baseball greats, but there was also a time where Eric Davis was the single best player in baseball. A tremendous talent, derailed by injury. I would love to have seen a healthy Eric Davis all throughout his career. That Eric Davis would have been a Hall of Famer. Tremendous talent, just tremendous talent. And then if I'm looking in the last 40 years, I want to find a pitcher to put on this list, and I struggle to find a pitcher to put on this list that just in the last 40 years, that's like a Mount Rushmore guy. I don't know. Johnny Cueto is probably the closest they had to a guy that you would consider there. It's not Homer Bailey. He did have 2 no-hitters, but he by and large was a miss. Maybe you go outside of pitching. Maybe it's Jay Bruce. Maybe we talk about Ken Griffey Jr. because as injury riddled as he was here, he did hit a lot of home runs in Cincinnati. I'm not quite sure what to do with the 4 spot. Maybe it's Adam Dunn, but I want a pitcher on the list, so I'll just put Johnny Cueto up there.
Excellent.
Yeah, can't argue there. So I think we've had a great conversation. Just as anyone, Darren, before we shut this down, anyone else that we forgot off that list that you would have in there?
People can roll their eyes. I mean, my 4 were said Eric Davis, Jay Bruce. I like a lot. Barry Larkin. But him as a Yankee, but he won a World Series with the Reds, and that's Paul O'Neill. I mean, Paul O'Neill was he's a set it, forget it guy. Put him in right field, and that's it. He had the great kicking the ball into the infield as a Red. Remember that, which was great. The guy was a wonderful player and just tough as nails. And to me, he had that legacy from the Pete Rose eras, from the Johnny Bench. He was tough and he cared, and he's going to punch you in the mouth if he had to win. So he's believe it or not, he's on mine. I look at him as much a Red as a Yankee.
Yes.
I love that you bring up the kicking of the baseball. If you go to Paul O'Neill's baseball reference page, only player on Baseball Reference that has this position: right fielder, bats left, throws left, kicks left.
Right.
That's awesome.
I love that. You just made my day. I love it.
We appreciate you coming on, Stephen. Really excited to see where this team finishes up. Again, I'm going to go on record. It is May 19th. This team is winning the division.
Yes, sir.
It may be a one-game thing, but they're going to win the division. So we'll see what happens on the end of the season. But all they have to do is be the hot team to get in. They don't have to be the Dodgers and finish 37 games above 500. They just got to get in. And we saw what Arizona did last year. Anything's possible. Thank you, Darren, for coming on as well. And until next time, we'll see you around the ballpark.